To a hungry person, if you can't get a full meal, a cup of soup will help a lot.
It is just not the right time to anticipate a tax on the people of Texas.
The governor is using the rainy day fund as if it was his own private endowment.
It's a budget that reflects the money we have.
Nobody came and endorsed any one of these cuts.
By the end of this week, Texas House members will begin debate on a $164.5 billion budget bill. It falls about $23 billion short of the state's current budget and does not raise taxes. Thousands of jobs on the line, severe cuts for the poor and elderly Texans, and billions in education funding gone. We're little more than halfway done with Session 11.
From KXAN Austin News, this is Session 11, live interactive breakdowns, insights, interviews, and our weekly roundtable discussion. You're watching Session 11 on KXAN Austin News.
Good morning, I'm Robert Hadlock. Thanks for joining us here for Session 11. The House Appropriations Committee has passed the budget bill to the floor, and the Senate committee is searching for an extra $5 billion in non-tax revenue. This morning, our On Politics panel dives into the proposed cuts to Medicaid and other social services. But first, our political reporter is here to tell us about the Senate's progress in boosting the budget.
Now, Robert, right now it's all about finding more money without raising taxes. But the House's massive proposed cuts might not fly in the Senate. The lieutenant governor has said there are not enough Senate votes to approve the House plan. His newly appointed subcommittee should have a better idea by the end of the week where it hopes to find that extra $5 billion in revenue. Selling property and closing tax loopholes are just a few of the ideas so far. This morning, our On Politics poll asks, should House members rethink their no taxes approach to the budget? Log on to KXAN.com and let us know what you think. And while you're there, click on the On Politics tab at the top. You'll go straight to our special political site where you can find our latest coverage and blogs. Plus, click the blue bar at the top to chat with us this morning. We're talking health care, social services, and the budget. Our On Politics panel will field your questions later in the program. Robert?
Thanks, Josh. Some of the biggest debate of the week was a big distraction from the budget process. Still, a controversial voter ID bill kept the House tied up late into the night. Democrats were able to stall it last session and tried this time with more than 60 amendments and several points of order. But in the end, Republicans prevailed 101 to 48. Supporters say it prevents voter fraud, but critics say it will keep some people, like the poor, the elderly, and minorities, from voting altogether. One of the most vocal opponents was Trey Martinez-Fisher, a Democrat from San Antonio. He's serving his 6th term in the House, is the chairman of the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus, and is also the vice chairman of the Committee on State Sovereignty. Jose Aliceda is a Republican from Beeville, serving on the newly created House Voter Identification and Voter Fraud Committee. He has prosecuted several election fraud cases and has also delivered the GOP's closing remarks during the voter ID debate. That's a rare privilege for a freshman. Josh spoke with the two men at the Capitol for this morning's Newsmaker debate.
To not be able to discuss this by way of amendments, which is a very valid way to pass legislation in this chamber because we don't have time. We have the ability to pass amendments. There was not one single amendment that was accepted, and the few that were had to deal with allowing Native Americans to use IDs so they could vote with their tribal cards.
We accepted more than
there were
1 or 2.
There were 60 amendments, and I would challenge anybody to tell me that we passed, a significant number of amendments off the floor. And I think the record
some of the amendments they proposed were just plain ridiculous. But yeah, I think the intent that the Democrats had were to try to delay us as long as possible on the vote. And in addition, with whatever their amendments were, I think they were intended to somehow be a poison pill to the entire bill. That's the way I viewed their amendments. That's why I didn't vote for them.
We can talk about the ridiculous amendments. Let's have a driver's license be your voter identification card. Ridiculous. Let's vote against that.
I don't think it's ridiculous. I do not think that's ridiculous.
If you voted against it and you said it was ridiculous.
Well, that's not the way that's not the way the amendment read. I don't think that's ridiculous. I think eventually we're going to have to go to some kind of I'd like to see some kind of national voter ID card, because we can't do this on a state-by-state basis with any sense of security. I'm satisfied that what we passed will enhance security.
I can't overcome the inconsistencies. We can't do a state-by-state plan. We need a national plan. We just voted a state plan yesterday. I would support a driver's license eventually. We had the opportunity to do it yesterday. You know, this is, you know, mañana is the busiest day of the week in the Capitol because we never get to it because we kick the can down the road. We had ample opportunity. We spent over 12 hours on that House floor debating ideas, and some of them were very reasonable. Why are we going to require senior citizens over the age of 70, many of which don't even drive anymore? My mother's over the age of 70. She doesn't drive. She has Parkinson's disease. Now she has to go out and get a free ID if she's going to vote. She doesn't have a passport. She doesn't have a national birth certificate with her picture on it. Now she has to get a free ID, and he's going to find it funny. He's going to find it funny
difficult.
because my mother's been voting the same poll in the same neighborhood that she's lived in since 1970. And all of a sudden, those volunteers and election judges that know her by name and know her to be the precinct chair for that precinct are now going to have to tell her to go to DPS. And bear in mind, in inner city San Antonio, there's one DPS station within the entire Loop 410 of San Antonio. This is the seventh largest city in America.
I don't understand how anyone can function in this society without one of the forms of ID that we agreed would be acceptable as a voter identification card. That is just not realistically possible. This is 2011. This is the United States of America. IDs are needed for everything we do in our society today, from cashing a check, opening a bank account, renting a movie. As simple as renting a movie, you need to produce an ID card.
And if you're 70 years old, you're not cashing a check. You're getting direct deposit. If you're on Social Security, you're not renting a movie. You're buying one on cable TV. You don't need an ID to do that. I mean, if you're homebound and you have people taking care of you, you have people driving you to your affairs, you have a Medicaid card, Medicare card, you have all the things you need. My point being is this: if a driver's license is the only accepted ID, my mother doesn't have one.
Well, those same people that he says help them do these other things could help them get an identification card. That's just unrealistic to expect that this is going to be some kind of insurmountable obstacle. For another thing, his mother could vote by mail-in ballot if she chose, if she really doesn't have an ID, like he says.
And he's right about that. And you know what? That's where 70% of the mail fraud is, where the voting fraud is. 70% of the fraud in voting is mail ballot. There's not one word, not one sentence in Senate Bill 14 that deals with that. And there may be 1,000 bills in the pipeline that we're going to address
what
within the coming days.
What bills have the Democrats filed on mail-in voter fraud? Not one.
And
they've had years and years, and it's the same argument that I'm making today about they want a Texas state ID card for voting. They've had years. We've had this debate for years, session after session. Why did they wait till the last minute, literally the last minute, to propose this, quote, state ID card for voting that they want now? They could have done this sessions ago. They're not really interested in an identification card like what they are proposing. What they're really interested in, in my opinion, is leaving the door open for fraud, and that's not what I want.
Well, their debate goes on for another 15 minutes, and we have the entire conversation streamed on our websites, KXAN.com and OnPolitics.com. Plus, there's still more to come here on Session 11.
And let me ask the question a third time, since this is your bill, and I presume that the lady has read her bill, and I presume that the lady is prepared to debate her bill. And if the lady is not prepared to debate her bill, then I will let you yield to somebody who is.
I am here to talk about the requirements to show up to vote when you want to cast an in-person ballot. And if you don't, you have the opportunity to cast a provisional. Yes, sir, I've read my bill.
One of our newsmakers had quite a heated floor exchange with the voter ID bill's author. That conflict, House minorities, even rumors of racism, it's all part of the debate next on Session 11.